Welcome to the show, Meeting Interesting People. Today my guest, historian Dee Morris. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much.
And I met Dee a while ago when you first did the lectures at the library.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. And then later you started making the tours.
Yes.
Around the method. And then we talk about that maybe you should write a book. And one day, I was happy surprised that the book has come out, but it wasn't about Medford.
Right, right.
So how did that happen?
It happened in a way by accident. The History Press, which is a small operation in the United States, but they're wonderful in that they do local histories and regional histories, which is a very small but interesting niche. And I was contacted by them because they wanted a book written about Somerville. Now, I'd done a lot of programs there, so this friend of mine who had been a historian and librarian in Somerville, Doris St. Martin, agreed, and we set out to do this book. And it was very, we learned a lot as we went along. As much information as we had, it becomes very different when you then have to put a form on it. And we didn't want the usual rich white guy's story where everybody you read about or think about is just in an exalted class and has much more money than you've ever thought of, and you think that's the background of a particular place. And it really isn't. Sure, there are the elite and the rich, but more importantly, there are a lot of middle class people who have very interesting stories and usually have contributed a great deal to a place. So that's, and women. That's another thing you don't find in many histories, is you think there is only one gender in the world, and all of these people happen to be men, and they've done marvelous things, and the women stood by and supported them. Well, yes, they have supported men, but the other part is women have done some very nice things and wonderful things on their own, and that was one aspect we definitely wanted to get into the book.
But today you brought this piece of tool.
I brought a wrench with me,
yeah,
yes.
which is not invented by a woman.
Not invented by a woman, but women use them, we can say that. But no, this was invented by a guy from Somerville by the name of Dan Stilson. And a friend gave me this wrench, and I saw on it, oh, a genuine Stilson. And I had sort of heard stories that this guy was in Somerville, and lo and behold, he was. And so I thought, this would be a good thing to stick in the book because this is something, even if you don't know how to use it, you've seen it. And if you go to collect tools for a tool chest, you're bound to get one of these things. So I thought since this is part of everybody's home repertoire, it would be good to have this included in the book. So that's typical of the type of story.
So, and you have that story in the book.
Could I read that?
Yes, absolutely,
because it's fun. And actually, Dan Stilson, who has his family plot now over at Mount Auburn, is in a very nice section, and his monument is quite elegant.
So this probably he made money.
He made money, which was great. So let me tell you about him. Sure. The Wrench Wizard. Somerville's neighborhoods were filled with inventors. Dan Stilson, his dates are 1826 to 1900, was a machinist by trade and came from New Hampshire. He enlisted in the Union Navy during the Civil War. Serving as a fireman on the steamer R.B. Forbes, he impressed his commanding officer, Colonel Levi Green, with his unique mechanical inventiveness.
We continue.
We could continue.
Yeah,
okay.
We're fine.
After the war, Green was recruited by the Walworth Company, systems and valves manufacturers, which were located in Boston and Cambridgeport. Dan Stilson applied for a job with his old Navy comrade. He was hired immediately, so networking does have its positive sides. By 1869, Stilson had designed a wooden model of an adjustable wrench that would do away with the multiple ones used every day by mechanics. The Walworth people examined his model and ordered him to create one in steel. When put to the test, the prototype successfully twisted off a length of pipe while leaving the wrench intact. Not only were they delighted, but they could foresee that the tool could revolutionize the pipe industry. Colonel Green and the executives insisted that Stilson obtain a patent in his own name. I thought that was incredibly impressive, because most times when people go invent something and they're part of a company, the company often takes over the patent, and you get some credit here or there, but not much. But in this case, his
kept his name.
His name was on the patent, but in exchange, in return for exclusive production rights, the company would provide him with all the necessary legal advice and pay any fees. The astonished Stilson agreed. Over the course of his lifetime, he earned over $70,000, which in his day would have been enormous, while the Walworth Company profited enormously from manufacturing a wrench that became a staple in every mechanic's toolbox. Having built his own home at 55 Tennyson Street, Stilson settled down with his family, served as an alderman, and became a vital member of the building committee of the new library on Central Hill. Stilson was a prime example of the self-educated, skillful artisan who searched out Somerville as his residence of choice.
So we have this book right now, and it's called Somerville, Massachusetts, A Brief History.
Right.
And where the people who will be interested to purchase, where they can buy that?
Oh, they can buy this online from the History Press. It's also, I believe, on Amazon.com.
Okay.
So just Google.
I think I was seeing in the Porter Square bookstore as well.
And yes, there is that great independent bookstore in Porter Square, and they sell this also.
But of course, our viewers will be interested to know, what about Medford?
Well, that's the deal. I needed to do the Somerville book first because I was very politely asked to do so. And I wanted to be cooperative, and I really had a great time doing it. So this year, I approached the History Press again and asked them, would it be okay to do a Medford history, because this is where I am now, and I have so many stories collected about Medford that they said fine. So as we speak, I'm in process of doing that.
Great. So hopefully we will get the book soon in our hands. But meanwhile, let's tell our viewers a little bit of history of Medford, which is, I don't think many people familiar with. For example, I was just looking through where the name came from, Medford.
Well, as in most places around Massachusetts, every town or city usually has a very colorful rendition of how they got their name. For Medford, it's still up in the air, which is true of a lot of places. This is not named after someone, like Winchester is named after a particular individual. This may be a corruption of Mead Ford, or meaning meadow. It's of English derivation, so it's a very pretty name, but when you come right down to the wire, nobody can point to the chapter and verse where somebody said, this is what we're going to call the city because. So as with most places around here, it's somewhat misty, and if you want, you can make up something on your own. But in general, it was just a very nice name that people said, let's do it.
Yeah. So recently, I know you were giving a lecture about the family of how I pronounce it?
Earhart. Right.
And I missed that one. Can you give us little tips?
Sure. They are not native to Medford, but it's important, I think, to talk about people who come to a place and settle in for a time or maybe for long periods. And the question of how did the Earharts get here and what did they do? Amelia Earhart, the great woman who was the aviator, she spent about 4 years roughly in Medford. Her sister Muriel came here also as an adult, and she lived in West Medford. She became a teacher, she married, she became a great civic organizer, and she spent decades here. Their mother, Amy, came here with the two women because Amy was just getting out of a very miserable divorce. And Amelia packed her up in California in her nice yellow car, drove her out to Medford, and together the three women rented a nice house on Brook Street. So what else did she do here? The fun thing in particular about Amelia in Medford was when she, in 1928, she was a passenger on a transatlantic flight. That got huge publicity. She did not pilot the plane. She described herself as like a piece of baggage on the trip. But what it was enormously new for a woman to have done this at all.
Right.
So Medford just went crazy on a wonderful reception for her. One store sent out specially made coins as commemoratives. There was a huge parade through the city. The city gave her a very odd-looking sterling silver lamp with a huge inscription on it. And there was a wonderful editorial in the newspaper about this wonderful woman who they called a native daughter of Medford. Medford wanted to get as much credit as possible. She had been, she had voted in Medford. She'd been here for a while, and they were going to take her as their own child. So Medford always portrayed Amelia Earhart as belonging to them. You would think she had been born here, but she came from Kansas.
I see. So we know that you've given tours different parts of Medford.
Right.
So recently we had a tour that was called like...
Oh, People of Quality.
People of Quality.
Right.
So, and you said you're preparing another one, which is covered what part of Medford this time?
Well, I'm probably going to do one up around Wrights Pond, where
Wrights
there was
Pond.
a silent film community.
Uh-huh.
And, well, actually, the one, let me just insert something about that People of Quality. I like to do different neighborhoods in the city because oftentimes people are so busy, even if they just live, if they live in a place, but they don't go walking around exploring something because they go here, go there.
Plus,
So-
most of them driving.
And, oh yeah, so you don't, your eyes are on the road, you're not looking, hopefully, to the left or right to see what's in there. So with the People of Quality, which is dealt with the area going up Bradley Road, it's right off High Street, very close to the Gaffey Funeral Home. I discovered it was a very up-to-the-minute story because all of the houses in that area pretty much came about because a very nice merchant, he went bankrupt. And all his real estate that he owned in the city was put on the market. That's how he got to pay off his creditors. And I thought, well, this is extremely timely because so many places now are going through foreclosure, et cetera, that actually I've come to find out what happened in the past is very relevant to the present. So it's nice to walk around that beautiful section and say this is a result of foreclosure.
And of course, I know that not so many people know about that Medford had a racetrack.
Yes, in South Medford, where it's really flat. It was the perfect location to put up the Mystic Trotting Park.
And we just remind our viewers what period are we talking about.
Oh, I specialize pretty much in 19th century history. So the racetrack in South Medford, and actually it turned out to be two of them. One put up like 1869, 1870, and the other one in the 1890s. The first one, well, when it came into town, so to speak, the people didn't know what they were getting into. The residents said, well, this is pretty good, but it will be sort of a quiet thing. Well, of course it wasn't. It drew in some very, very interesting people, of course, namely gamblers, people out for a good time. And of course, there was the whole business with horses, and people are very interested in horses, so it was quite a success. It finally closed because there were accusations of cheating. It had sort of had its day. And then, of course, there were a lot of developers who were panting to get hold of that area because it was nice and flat, and what a great place to put up houses.
Yeah, and another tours you were given around the cemeteries, which is a part
Right.
of history as well.
Oh, sure, sure.
And we were visiting so many interesting monuments, which is like uncovering people and
Right.
their faces and
Right.
their professions. So you can tell a little bit about this tours because we already have like 5 minutes left. So
Okay, well, again, what I found in